The most feared man in US prison, Thomas Silverstein. Thomas Silverstein, this man here who was timid, shy, awkward in his childhood, was the most feared man in US prison. He used to draw and sketch. Was it all just an outlet for all the torture from severe punishments he went through? Do you even know, with all the scary stories around him, he was still considered a person with a good heart by some of his inmates? Well, we're about to let you know everything about Thomas Silverstein, the most feared man in the US prison, in today's video. From his first robbery conviction to the scariest and most brutal murders he convicted. Why was he the most feared in prison? Tune in. Thomas was 19 years old when he first entered the federal prison system after being convicted of 3 bank robberies with his family members, his father and his uncle. Just 3 years after that, he was convicted of the first murder of his life when he murdered an inmate. Thomas was part of a gang named the Aryan Brotherhood, and it was the most feared gang in the prison at the time. The first inmate he killed ran afoul of this terrifying gang, and the consequence was death. He was sent to federal prison in Marion, Illinois. Luckily, the judge overturned the conviction over the credibility of witnesses, but this luck came too late, and Silverstein has already murdered another inmate. His second murder was the murder of a black prison gang member by strangulation. The third murder by Thomas Silverstein happens when a fellow of the same gang member swears to take revenge by killing Thomas, but to his misfortune, it becomes his own demise when Thomas killed him. His name was Raymond Smith. Smith attempted to kill Thomas multiple times, but guards kept them away. Putting all the efforts of prison officials to keep them separated, Thomas, with an inmate, figured out how to catch Smith when he was leaving the shower area and brutally killed him. Both of the prisoners stabbed him 67 times. Not only did they brutally kill him, but also they dragged the dead body soaked in blood in front of other prisoners, who were still caught up in their cells to instill their terror in them, with Thomas becoming the most feared prison inmate. Thomas's murder attempts do not end here, but he attempted to murder Officer Merle Eugene Klutz in 1983. That's where Thomas chose even severe punishments for himself, because killing a correctional officer is no joke. Guards stopped talking to Thomas in their respect for Klutz. Thomas killed Merle Klutz so brutally too. After the medical examination of the dead body, it was found that he was stabbed 40 times. That's terrifying. As a result of being convicted of the brutal murder of a correctional officer, he was kept under the harshest conditions in BOP, the Bureau of Prisons. He was kept in total isolation to make it even more torturous. Lights were kept on 24 hours a day, and they stripped all of his clothes except his boxers. He could not have anything in his cell either. Cameras were installed within his cell, and he was not only watched through those cameras, but also those 2 guards sat outside his cell to watch him. These conditions continued for 6 months, and after his time period of 6 months, BOP decided to give Silverstein some things. Say he was given television and some sketching material. So that's how he started sketching, and his sketches depicted his inner world and his emotions. The reason behind this was that he must have something to be taken away as a punishment. He used to sketch a lot, and he was self-taught. His drawings can still be found online. Prisoners could sell their artwork to the public, but Thomas even refused that. He could not showcase his artwork in art shows where prisoners showcase their art. Thomas Silverstein was considered one of the reasons why ADX Supermax was designed and made to control his activities in prison. Supermax is the most secure prison system in America, and there's a reason it's called Supermax. Supermax is spread over almost 37 acres, and there are nearly 500 beds in the compound. The inmates who have shown really violent behavior from all other prisons across the states were sent here for solitary confinement. These were the criminals who were too dangerous to be kept in other prisons. In the initial 3 years, they are not allowed to have any contact with any other inmates. Their behavior was observed, and if they behaved properly, they might be given more time to the bigger cell, where the roof was a window, allowing skylight to come in. In more fortunate situations, they might be sent back to their less secure prison systems. The cell was designed accordingly to accommodate the most dangerous inmates. So the cell had a desk, a stool, and a bed. They were immovable and made of concrete. Showers had timers to prevent flooding or any other inconvenience that the inmate might want to create. Occasionally, they were privileged with television or radio, and it was too based on the observation of the behavior of the inmate. When it comes to food, to avoid any inconveniences, when the most dangerous inmates had been gathered under the same roof, food was hand-delivered to every inmate by guards, and there was no concept of mess halls. Even more, to check on all the activities, the prison had a plethora of motion detectors and cameras. The steel doors are remote controlled, Attacking dogs, laser beams, and pressure pads are also added for more security. There was no chance of escaping this prison at all. Breaking out of the cell is nearly impossible, and then out of the prison is next to impossible. The inmates were given very harsh conditions, from solitary confinement to bright light over their heads 24 hours a day. But it was considered fair and no inmate was treated unfairly, considering the circumstances that brought them here. So solitary confinement uses the approach to leave inmates alone with their own selves. All they have is their own thoughts. Being alone with their own thoughts for quite a long time, they get psychological issues. They might start getting hallucinations, where they might hear voices or even see people that don't exist around them. It can also further lead to memory loss. Thomas Silverstein is the only inmate who has been held in isolation for the longest period of time. His isolation period was more than half his life. Even though he was mentally stable, a psychologist would go and check on him every month. During these visits, the psychologist would talk to Thomas to see if he is mentally stable or not. If he showed anger or complained about his actions, he was considered normal since it was a normal reaction of any human being. Put in such conditions over a prolonged period of time, he considered isolation as cruel. He often portrayed BOP in his artwork sarcastically. In 2007, Thomas filed a civil rights lawsuit to end his solitary confinement. The lawsuit was basically filed by a law team from the University of Denver. His cell was often called the Silverstein Suite, and he used this term in his art too. He said, "It's almost more humane to kill someone immediately than it is to intentionally bury a man alive." Pete Early, an author who was working with Thomas to write an autobiography, said, "Tom Silverstein is an important figure because his killing of Merla Klutz in Marion really set the stage for Supermax. He became a mythical figure in the Bureau of Prisons. He was seen by the inmates as a superhero, a hero of the Aryan Brotherhood. Refusing to bend to the BOP, in the eyes of the BOP, he became a hated figure. After almost a solitary confinement of 36 years, more than 3 decades, with no socializing with any human, his torture finally came to an end when he fell ill. He was taken to hospital, and he died because of complications in his heart surgery. He died in St. Anthony's Hospital in Denver. In his memoir, he wrote, "Drip, drip, drip. The minutes, hours, days, weeks, months, years constantly drip away, with no end or relief in sight." This is Thomas Silverstein, who has spent all his life in prison except his early 19 years. He committed heinous crimes and murdered 4 people, including a correctional officer, becoming the most feared inmate. Does his story give you chills down the spine too? Let us know in the comments below. We would love to hear it from you. Want more videos? Subscribe to our channel and hit that bell icon so you don't miss any future videos. Show us your support by liking this video and sharing it with your friends. We'll see you in the next video.